Hello. So the dogs will probably get in my way as they usually do, but I'm sorry the angle's kind of weird. I'm just trying out my new iPad. Well, it's actually my mom's iPad, but I took it from her when she decided she couldn't work it anymore. So yay me. Anyway, um, so I like to practice Yin yoga, and what's nice about Yin yoga is you can you can kind of spread out on the floor, and I sometimes will do it while I'm watching television, and I've even done it in my pajamas, and I actually remember um, sometimes doing one yoga practice where I would fall asleep. So it's in some practices you can do asleep, but this one is good to just get to your hips. And there's different ways you can practice it. So I've already showed you some of the main postures. But so what I talked about before was the modified pigeon. The reason why is that when you do standard pigeon, a lot of people will do it this way. Now I can't do it because of my owie on my knee. But ultimately, you have your shin, and people can't really even get into this posture. And then you can get into the front hip by rolling forward. But but you don't get as much of the back hip because you're still trying to struggle into getting into this posture to begin with. And that's why I suggested bringing the knee forward a little bit and propping it up onto a blanket. And the reason why I didn't, so you can use a block as well. But this block is really, really hard. I don't like to use it as a yoga prop very much. And the key is here is not getting it to the point where you're going, ow. Okay. Because for this, you want to turn this hip so it's best as possible facing forward. And in yin, you're actually folding forward for a long time, and that will again get your front hip. But sitting up straight like this, you're going to be able to move the back leg back a little bit so you can target this sore hip right here. And so I like to just hang out here for a while. And what happens in yin is, yes, you're stretching the muscle, but you're also stretching the fascia. And so what happens is the fascia is like a saran wrap around your muscles. And what happens is, depending upon what tradition you're from, they'll say, okay, well, that holds on to trauma, but really does. It will tighten on you just as much as the muscles do. And you stretch the muscle, but it really doesn't stretch the fascia as much. So this is a really good practice to release this back hip, but maybe you get a little bit of stretch in the front hip. And with yin, you want to hold your postures for at least 2 minutes. And of course, I didn't time it, but just enough where it's just starting to let go. So you should feel just a lot of this tension starting to dissolve over that time. So what I always suggest is doing about 40 or 50% of what your maximum would be. Now, if I were doing the yang version of this, I would be upright like this and pressing in with the front hip, but I can't hold it for very long. The yin version is a little softer, so you can hold it for a little bit longer. And anytime you're doing stretches, you're going to take slow, deep breaths. That's kind of what's part of why you do feel relaxed is you're slowing down the breath. And you always pay attention to the breath and notice how the stretch will feel on the inhale and how it will feel on the exhale. So it's always going to be changing. And one day you'll feel tight, one day it'll feel a little bit loose, but it really depends upon how much tension builds up through the day. So this is fine to do every single day because it doesn't involve anything too you don't have to roll out a mat or anything. So so one thing you can do as well, so now that we're here, let's cross the leg around. And this might not be possible for you. So you can extend the front leg and you can get rid of your towel. And ow, I just crunched this knee, not good. And so now you're pulling. So this is actually working the outer hip right now. And we'll just pull on this side for a little bit. So ultimately this pose will progresses to this. And then you do the funky thing with the arms. But we don't do that in a yin practice. It's mostly just about tugging gently some of the fascia so it lets go. And you can even do a little bit of a twist to get a little bit deeper into the hip. This will get a little bit more into the top of the hip, near the top of the pelvis. So so we're still kind of working with this hip, but we're going to start working on this hip in a minute. So let's bring, best as possible, the legs crossed, or you can just come into like an easy cross leg pose. So to work this hip, it's going to be kind of like under you, and this one's going to be over, and you can ease the left arm out to the side and move your torso over to the left. So this is going to get the top part of the hip, because again, you've got the psoas, the iliopsoas muscles here that get the stretch in the first part of the pose on the opposite side. So this is getting a little bit more of the TFL and then the QL in the back. So we just kind of lean over to the side and feel the whole side body stretch. And you might even notice, so what happens is when we are seated for too long of a time at our desk, the compression really sets in, and it actually goes to the weakest parts. So the stronger muscles tend to take on a lot of the tension. We might not even realize that some of the weaker parts are just kind of hitching for a ride. And so So different people are going to feel this stretch differently. So you might feel it in your tricep muscle. You might even feel it in your neck. And then depending upon how your torso twists, so if your torso is twisting a little bit more like this, you'll feel a little bit more in the QL towards the back. Or if you open it up a little bit more, you'll probably feel a little bit more in your hip or in your lats. And you can drape the hand over your head if your arm gets tired. And notice how my shoulder is kind of hiked up. You can just bend the elbow to allow your body to move a little bit more towards the ground. And so I'm noticing a lot of tension in the back of my neck. And so when my arm is gently resting on that area, you're just getting a little bit of a tug there. And so let's do the opposite side. So we had the left leg back. This time we're going to do the right leg back. And so Adriana, I know that's your right side. You might have done the left side first. So again, it's always, especially if you're new to yoga, you want to use props as much as possible, especially for yin yoga, because it really is about being as comfortable as possible, because you are going to be staying for a long time. I did some of this I used to teach this to CrossFitters, and they were very impatient because the time they would stay in these postures was the time they would actually do one of their workouts. So again, so this is you want to turn the hip towards the front knee best as possible. And again, so you can, if this feels okay on your knee, that's fine. I have done this